Hey, how's it going? It's your main man, Imani Mulaya. Today I'm going to do a tutorial on a podcast template I'm working on for OBS. I'm fairly new to OBS and developing this, but I think this could be a great help to the community. If you're interested in using OBS for things like doing podcasts with Zoom interviews, hopefully this helps. You can see a few examples here where I create custom scenes and sources and graphics and put them together into a package. With this template, I'll show you how to create your own package just like this. This is PC only for the time being. I'm working on a Mac version soon. Keep in mind, this is for intermediate users of OBS, for people who already know how to navigate around, create scenes and sources. If you'd like to know more about that, there's some great tutorials already on YouTube. If you'd like for me to make a tutorial, be sure to leave that in the comments below and I'll work on that soon. Of course, the first step is to download the latest version of OBS Studio. You can go to obsproject.com and make sure you download the Windows version. When you download it, make sure that the install file that pops up is a 64-bit version. That's what we're going to use for this project today. So save it and install it. Now when you install OBS, make sure it installs in the default path. The default path is your C drive, your programs files, and if you click on that, it automatically creates a programs files OBS Studio folder. It's important that it goes in this folder for now, so that when we install the template, it knows where to find all the files. So go ahead and install. Once the installation is complete, then you have the option to launch OBS Studio. Don't launch it quite yet, as we're going to install a few other add-ons. To get these add-ons, we have to go back to the OBS website, and then we have to navigate to the forum section in the top right. When you get to the forum section, there are more options at the top here. Make sure you click on Resources, and you'll see tons of add-ons, plugins, themes, tools, scripts, and other things that you can insert into OBS to make them a lot more user-friendly and to give them more functionality. I'm going to show you the add-ons that we're going to use for this template. The first add-on is the motion effect. This allows things inside of OBS to move and animate. I'll put a link in the description below. Make sure you follow the instructions and you can download it from this website. The next add-on is a shader filter. This allows you to do things like drop shadows, gradients, and tons of other cool things to make your scenes and sources look more alive. Same thing, read the instructions on how to install and then go and download from the link here. Next, you can install the actual podcast template. It's a zip file, so you have to extract everything into its own folder. In the folder, you're going to see two things, a data folder and a podcast template file. The data folder goes into your OBS folder. So you can copy that and navigate to your OBS folder, which should be in the C drive, program files, and OBS Studio. So go ahead and paste that folder into your OBS folder. And you can leave the podcast template file exactly where it is. The last thing is the font used in the template. You can install this font in Google Fonts. Make sure you download it, install it to your computer. And just like all the other add-ons, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. Now that everything's installed, we can finally open up OBS Studio. When you open up OBS Studio for the first time, everything's in the default. So right now there's nothing in the preview area, nothing in the scenes, nothing in the sources. Even the scene's name itself is untitled. First, let's change some settings to get this thing set up for our template. When we go into settings, I'll hit the settings tab down here. What we need to change is the video size. This template currently is only at 1280 by 720. Soon I'll have different versions for higher resolution. But if you click on these drop-down menus for base canvas resolution, you'll see your options. Right now we're going to use 1280 by 720, and same thing for the output resolution, 1280 by 720. All the other options here we'll get to later. Now that we have our settings, let's import the template. To do that, you have to go up to Scene Collections. Click on Import. This will take us to a menu where we can import our templates. Go ahead and Add down here at the bottom. That'll take us to a window and navigate to the podcast template folder. I had it on the desktop, and there it is. Now we can add the single file that was in that folder, the podcast template. Go ahead and add that, and after you've done that, hit import. It won't pop up automatically. You have to go back up to scene collections and click on it. So now, where we initially had Untitled, we also have a second one called Podcast Template. So let's click that and see what happens. And there we go. We start off with our title screen. So now I'm going to walk you through the different things that are inside of this template. So let's start with the different scenes that you're going to see as you navigate through here. This is going to be the basic look of your podcast. If you go down to the scenes window, you'll see it starts with the title pages where we're at right now. After that, we have one boxes. One is for the host. As you can see, we have a border, we have a nice little trim here, and we have the little logo bug. Right now I'm using an avatar as a placeholder until we actually have images to put in here. After the host one box, we have a two box with both the host and the guest. Same thing, same design, same logo. Everything's laid out in template form. We have a guest one box where you can have your guest. And we have another page for stats. If you want to have topics or stats for your podcast or about your guest, you can line them up here. The next page is graphics. If you have a full screen graphic or even a full screen video, you can put it in here with the same template design and have your image running in the middle. After that, a few other options. We have host insert. Let's say if you want your host here and your graphic here. And the same thing for the guest. You can have your guest here and your graphic here. Those are the main scenes. The rest in the scene window are supplementary scenes, which we'll get to later, of how you customize the different main scenes. Let's start with the customization of the two box. Let's say if you want lower thirds in here, aka their names pop up. There's an option for that as well. I've designed names that you can animate on using that emotion effect that we downloaded. For instance, the name will pop up. And this is where you can have their name and their title. And I'll show you how to change that in a minute. Also, you can bring up another slate. Let's say if you want to do contact information. You can do that as well. Their website, their social media handles, anything you want to put in here. And that'll animate on as well. And this works not just on the two box. This works on the one box as well. And on the inserts as well. So that's a nice little feature. So you can control all of these using hotkeys. That includes controlling these animations and even switching between scenes. The way to do this is in settings and go to hotkeys. Inside here are a lot of options that you can change and you can assign to a key on your keyboard. Once again, you can check out a basic tutorial or leave a message in the comments if you'd like to learn more about how to assign hotkeys to different scenes and actions in OBS. Now I'll show you how to customize these scenes to make them fit your look and feel. First, let's get rid of this avatar. If you're navigating the scenes, we've gone through all of the basic scenes that you see when you're doing your podcast. Let's go to more of these advanced scenes where you can actually edit a few things. Let's start with down here at host and guest. That'll be up first. This is how you insert your video or your image. So if you click on host, now we get into the sources. These are all the different sources that are attached to the host. We have the lower thirds here that's built into a folder. That's the host's name, host title, and a few other graphic elements. Same thing for the contact information. You can also insert a camera, which is what you would do with your podcast. We'll get to that later. Right now I'm going to switch to avatar so at least we have something to look at. So if you have an image for your host, let's say if the video is not working, you can double click on that. This is an image source. And choose the image you'd like. So I'm going to browse to a folder I created that has some samples in there. So I'm going to go to my documents. I have a podcast demo. And I'm going to insert a host image. Let me do that. So there we go. Now we have an image in there. And ideally this would be a video, but for today's purposes, we'll just work with images. So also down here we have our guest. I'm going to switch that image out as well. And you see in the sources we have the lower thirds, contact, the remote, which would be, let's say, a zoom capture. And I didn't speak on the mic as well. Also the audio inputs. But we'll get to all that later. Right now, let's just switch the image. So for the guest, let's put in another image from documents, my podcast demo. Let's put a guest in there. So now you'll see how that affects our main scenes. So if I go to the host one box, now the host is in there. If I go to the guest one box, there's our image. In the two box, both of them are there. So now how do we change more things inside of this template? We've already added images which eventually turn into the actual video. But what if you want to change the background? Or maybe the trim here? Even the logo itself? Well, that's where we go to more of these scenes. The same way we change the host and guest image, we can also change things like the background, the border, and a few other options as well. Let's start with the background. If you double click on that scene, you can see the sources. I put two in here. One is for the background image itself, and also an option for an animation, in case you want to have a moving background. Let's start with that. I'm going to go into this source, which is a media source. And I'm going to look for a file and I'm going to make it loop. I actually have a looping background. So let me open that and hit OK. Now if you look, I have a background. It moves subtly, but there's a little bit of motion to it. So now when we go back to our two box, you can see the animated background in motion. And it carries over to the one box, to the stats, and all of the other main scenes that we have. So what if you just want to change this background image? You don't quite have an animation yet, or you just want to try something new? You can navigate back to the background scene, and we're just going to mute this animation. We use the options over here to turn that off, and all we have left is a background image. So let's try to add a new image. Just click on that, this image source, and hit browse. And I'm going to go back to my demo, my podcast demo. And I have a brick background. So let me put that in there. Hit OK, and there it is. We got a brick background. We may have to change it around a little bit, resize it. I'll do that right now. I'll transform it, fit it to screen. And you can do that however you see fit, whether you want to use an edit software, you want to do everything in OBS, but try to get it just right. Now we have a new background image. And the same thing with the animation. If we go to our one box, we have a new background, two box, and all of the other scenes. Next, let's change the trim color. Right now it's red, and that's across all the scenes when you have your borders, and also in the lower thirds as well. There's a little red bar in there. So to change that, we're going to have to go to the border scene. And if you click on that, that brings up just a solid color with a little bit of gradient in there. That's going to open up a color source. Go ahead and click on that, and there you go, you have your basic color without the gradient. So you can select any color you want. Let's say right now we have red. I'm going to select blue and hit OK. Close that. We still have blue with the gradient. So now when we go to our scenes, in the one box, the border is now blue. Same for the two box and the stats. And if we go to our two box and bring up the lower thirds, the line here is blue as well. So that's a nice addition, so you can start to really customize your template. Next, we're going to customize a logo. I'm going to show you how to change and customize this inside OBS without going to an outside editing software. If you do have a logo editing software, you can do that and import that in OBS, and I'll show you how to put it inside of this template. So we're going to go to our scenes and navigate down to title. So here are the raw layers for the title. If you look in the sources, we have text 1, text 2, and the logo. You can put anything you want in here as far as other text files, other image files, anything to fill this entire screen to give it your look. But if you want to change what we already have here, it's pretty simple. Let's say we go to title 1, that's the podcast. This is a text source. So when I click on this, I can change things like the text, the font, the size, the color, and the stroke color. Since we're doing blue, I'm going to change the stroke color to blue. And that changes the stroke color. And I don't want to call it the podcast. Let me call this the Fightcast. Yeah, I like that. And when I hit OK, there it is. Now it's the Fightcast. I may want to resize it, move it around, do different things. I can even make this bigger. Or I can change the icon as well. Let me go to my template, my demo folder, and I have a nice little MMA glove. So let me do that. I'm hitting OK on the MMA glove. There we go. That's pretty cool. You can't see it because it's black on black, but it'll come out eventually. So there we go. I customized this. So now if we go back to our title page, there we are, the fight cast. Now it's in blue. MMA glove, it's a little dark, so I'll probably change that later. But when I go to every scene now, it changed. The fight cast, the 2-box, the guest box, and all of the scenes now have the new updated logo, which is pretty cool. If I don't like the way the logo looks or where it sits in the main scenes, I can simply go to the main scene, and it's in here called Title 3D, and I'll show you why in a minute. And if we go to our options over here again, the same way we have the option to turn it on and off, we also have the option to lock it in place. This is locked. If you unlock it, you'll be able to grab it and move it around. So you can adjust it if it changes when you make customizations to the title. And that goes for all of the pages. The 1-box, the 3D title, you can unlock it and move it around to your liking. Now you may be wondering why it's called Title 3D. That's because there's a cool 3D effect on there. I'll go to the title page. If you see, there's a little bit of extrusion going on right here with the "the," and even the glove, even though that the black doesn't work. But there's a little bit of extrusion going on. And I did that inside of OBS itself. So if you go back to the scenes and title, you have your basic title here. No extrusion, just everything that you can do inside of OBS, simply with the sources that are provided. If you go to Title 3D, I've created an extrusion layer where you have a little bit of depth. And if you look in the sources, there's a folder called Title Extrude. If I mute that, the extrusion goes away. This is another added perk. You may not like the extrusion, so what you have to do is mute it and it goes away. But it gives your logo a little bit more depth. This is just a folder with extra layers to create the extrusion. But it gives it a nice little polish. That way you can make a custom 3D graphic inside of OBS without going out into another software. So now we have a custom background, custom borders, custom logo. Oh, and I forgot to mention one more thing. These custom plates as well. Right now it's black behind the lower thirds. If you go down to scenes and go to fill, we did the border, and now let's do the fill. And this is blackish gray with the gradient in there. Let's change that color as well. I'm going to change it to, let's say, maybe we already have blue. So let's change it to a little different shade of blue. So I've hit OK. Now when I go to the 2-box, this is changed as well. And that also goes for the stats page. So the stats is changed as well. Not just the trim anymore, but also the background color for those. So we've changed the background, we've changed the trim, we've changed the background of the text here as well, and we've changed the logo. And it looks pretty good. So what do we do next? Next, let's get into the text here. How can we change that stuff as well? The text as far as the lower thirds, the contact information, even the stats. So I did this by creating a script. One way is to go into each individual layer and change the text files one by one, which takes a long time. It'd be nice to just have a sheet of paper where you can type in all this information at the beginning of the show and don't have to worry about it ever again. So to access this script, you have to go up to the options. Next to scene collections, there's one called Tools. If you click on that, these are more global options that you can do. This is the more heavy lifting where you do coding and things like that. In scripts, you can create your own codes. And that's exactly what I did. I created a script. It's the first one that pops up in the template. It's called Podcast Template. If you click on that, you will see options for everything that we see here. The host name, the host title, host contact, the guest name, title, and the different stats as well. Down here at the bottom is all the technical stuff, how you can assign these different things to the different source layers. But everything's pre-assigned, so all you have to do is type what you want. So the host for this is Imani Mulayer, me. And instead of host, I'll put podcast instructor. So there you go. And it updates automatically. It'll do the same thing for the guests. So Megan Anderson Jr. And that'll also change as far as the stats as well. So let's check that out. So in stats, I can change any text that I want. She's a 2-time UFC champion. And she's a Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And so forth and so on. So this is how you can customize all that stuff before your podcast. That way everything will be preset. If you want to do things like change the color of the text though, you will have to go into each individual layer, open it up, change things. You can change the font, the color, the stroke as well. But if you like the way it looks and it's already preset, all you have to do is go into the tools, scripts, and type it in for yourself and it'll already be preset. The last scene to customize is for the graphics. When you go to the graphic page, where you can have a full screen, you see that background color comes up first. That's the preset. If you actually want to put something in here like video or images, you have to go to the graphic scene. This is where everything lives, including that background color. So let's say if you have a graphic, an image you want to put into your podcast. Right now, there's a source called Graphic 1 that's in there. You can add multiple ones. Let's just start with this one. I double click on this image source and I can browse to my demo folder and I have an image of a fight clip. So that pops up. So that gives their podcaster something to talk about. So if I am running my podcast with a 2-box and then I go to the graphic scene, there it is, it pops up in the graphic. You can have multiple graphics they can scroll through. You can even have video, but I'll show that in a later tutorial. So we were able to customize all the scenes. We were able to put images in, change the border, change the background, able to change the color behind the text, and also get images in there and move those around along with hotkeys. We have a title page, and if you notice, I also have an option for music as well, where you can put your music in there and have that loop. And of course we have the lower third animations and anything else you want to animate in there. And you can control all that through this script that allows you to type in all of your options. Imani Mulayer +1. That's me. So this is a great way to get started. Next, we have to actually get video in here. So that is your camera and your guest camera, whether they're there with you or remote via Skype or Zoom. We'll talk about that later. This tutorial should help you set up your look and feel, and then we'll get you up and running with your podcast next. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and got something out of it. Be sure to let me know in the comments below, along with any other ideas or questions you may have so I can work on them in future videos. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the page, and stay tuned for more videos to come. Until next time, take care.